We recently rolled out Bamni in a Upazila Health Center in Kaliganj, which is in Dhaka division in Bangladesh. The hospital is fairly large with a OPD department, lab, pharmacy, and a 50-bed IPD. We have implemented all components of Bamni there, namely OpenMRS, LS, as well as ERP. In this video, I'll walk you through some basic workflows that I used in the Kaliganj GVHC. So typically, when a patient comes in to the Upazila Health Complex, he or she would first go to the registration counter to register himself. So I'll just go into the registration module to see how that works. So a clerk would go to the registration module. When the patient gives his or her information, the clerk would first search for the patient to check if he or she was previously registered with Bamni or in this particular hospital. So this patient's name was Farida. As you can see, the patient is not found. Apart from the name, you could also search for the patient using her phone number, her hospital ID or the health ID or village name. These things are configurable, so if you want to add more search criteria, we always can. So now since the patient was not found, the clerk would proceed to register the patient newly. So these are all the information that can be captured for a patient while registering her. So I'll start with her first name. So Farida Begum. Select a gender. So if you can see, there are two fields over here for the age. So one is age and date of birth. Usually in rural areas, the patients, especially the older ones, may not remember or have their exact date of birth, in which case we go ahead and enter an approximate age, let's say 35. As you can see, when I entered the approximate age, the date of birth was calculated by itself, and I can mark it as estimated to make sure that people know in future this was an estimated date of birth. If the patient had the real date of birth, you can always give that date of birth and the age would get calculated by itself. If you have the time of birth, you could give that also. Next, we come to the address fields. If you see, the top three fields over here are pre-populated. So how this happens is also through a configuration. Depending on what address is set for this particular hospital in OpenMRS, we can turn on a setting which will in turn populate these fields. So why we would want to do this is usually in the registration counters at such hospitals, it's very crowded and there isn't much time to register each patient, especially when there's a long queue standing behind. So and mostly the patients who come to these hospitals will fall within a certain area. So in most cases, the top level address would remain the same, and hence we've pre-populated it so the clerk won't have to keep filling it over and over again. So in the address line, you could just give a more specific information like the village name or the house number. So let's say Tupati village, house number 4. Now, once we're done with the address section, there are some other information or other details that we can capture about the patient. All of them are optional. So let's say if the patient has a national ID, we can proceed to capture that. National IDs are usually 13 or 17 digits. So we also have a validation for it. So if you hover over it, it will tell you it's not. Okay. So you can enter a 13-digit national ID here. And I will start an outpatient visit. So we have options over here if you want to start an inpatient or an emergency visit. But in this case, usually patients who come to the registration counter would want to start an outpatient visit. So yeah. Once the outpatient, over here I'll have to also select a fee category for the patient. So it's usually general. Let's see.